Welcome to the Builders Podcast, episode 64, Week in the Life of an Agency, Unified Web Design, April 11th through 15th, 2022. Before we jump into this episode, please subscribe to this podcast if you love business and real stories from the trenches. And after a listen, please give us a thumbs up, like, and share if we've earned it. Hit that notification bell too if you're on YouTube so you don't miss each episode. With your help, we can reach more people and deliver these valuable From the Trenches lessons to those that need it. Enjoy the episode. Welcome to another The Builders. This is your host, Matt Levenhagen. And I realize I need to start saying that more because I used to say that. I had a longer intro before I went to YouTube. And when I went to YouTube, I reconfigured things, shortened the intro, and tweaked other things. And one of the things I realized I stripped out is saying who I am. And I don't generally do that when I jump on and start actually recording. So maybe I should do that. I was listening to some podcasts the other day. I'm like, I don't think I'm doing that. Maybe it'd be good for people to hear my name once in a while. Matt Levenhagen. I'm here. So guests. So this is like the third solo in a row. I realized, and this has happened a few times, that when I get to like three, I don't want to do three in a row. I like to have guests in. I like there to be a good balance. So if I do solos, it'll be like one or two in a row. But otherwise, we have a good stream of guests coming in. I talked to a good friend of the show, Lorraine, and she's got a podcast called More Than a Few Words. And I actually just recorded an episode to be on that podcast. But it's not posted until August. That's how far ahead she is. And so I had to pick her brain. I'm like, where are you finding all these guests? And she gave me some ideas. So maybe I'll have another source or a couple sources for guests. I already, everything that I have had so far has been either friends or organic or referrals. And I don't really pursue it that hard because I'm running an agency. That's what I'm usually 98% of the time focused on. So the podcast is fun, but I don't want it to be a stress point. So I try not to make this more of a job than it needs to be. But I do want to, I want to make sure that we're adding value. I want to have solos here and there because I want to share my journey as well and stories from the trenches. But I want there to be a good balance of guests, and I don't want to overload you with just having to look at me all the time. Anyway, so that's the thing with guests. So, and we do have a couple guests coming up. Guest recordings next week. One is actually another podcaster. We're going to be on each other's, and so that'll be a fun one. And then we're actually going to do something. I think it's called. Is it Sadie Hawkins Dances? I think that's what it is. Doland White. He's been on this podcast a few times. The other day or a couple weeks ago, he's like, I'd like to do changed roles. I want to interview you on your podcast. I'm like, okay. So Sadie Hawkins dance would be a dance where the girls ask the boys to dance. And yeah, that's the thing. I couldn't remember. I didn't know there was a name for it, or I couldn't remember there was a name for it, but that's what it is apparently. So that's what we're going to do. And so that should be interesting. I probably should be scared. But it'll be fun. I love Dolan. It'll be a blast. I have no doubt. So we do have some things to look forward to. You don't have to look at this mug only in the coming weeks. So today I actually was inspired. I love it when I don't know. I was thinking about the type of episodes we have and how they should be structured. And I'm always thinking about that. Like, what do I need to do to make sure I'm adding value? And not only that, we're able to, I don't like to think that of what we do is marketing this podcast, but we are marketing this podcast. We're putting content out and trying to draw attention to it. And you worry about your headlines and all that stuff. And sometimes what I like to do is just come on and just talk. And it's really hard to pull out a good headline from that. Like what we talked about, like 10 things or 20 things. What am I going to be highlighting in the headline? because usually you only want to highlight maybe 2, maybe 3 things, larger, broad topics that we talked about. And then in the show notes, we'll have more detail. But in any case, so anything like with that type of niche marketing or any kind of marketing, you want to be as precise as possible to draw in so a particular crowd, particular audience, to get somebody's attention. Like, what are they in for? If you're too broad, it's going to be difficult for somebody to decide they want to actually watch these, right? So I want them to be themed. And when we have guests on that are talking about their story, that's kind of a theme, right? It's this person's story, their journey as an entrepreneur. That's the theme. If I just start talking about random stuff, there's no real theme there. It's random stuff. So what kind of theme can I create? And so I was thinking about this, brainstorming about this. I thought, maybe we'll do it in the context of a week. And we'll call it something like Week in the Life. And in this case, it'll be Week in the Life or Week in the Business. You'll know, because by the time I post this, I'll have hopefully settled on that. A week in the life, a week in the business of in this case, a web designer, a web design agency owner or something. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to basically look at this past week. So this is Friday. I'm going to give you a good snapshot of all the things that we kind of did this week. So we're a busy agency. We're doing a lot of different things. So I'm not going to share every detail, and a lot of details are probably boring. I don't want to put you to sleep or anything, but I'm going to just kind of highlight some of the things and kind of give you a sense of what a week in the life looks like. You could think of this. I thought about I could do a day in the life, but every day is different. I think a week is going to give a little bit better snapshot of kind of the broad things that we do on a weekly basis, because different days we focus on different things, and just depends on how each week develops. But some days I may only be doing one thing, or just not a lot of exciting things happen in a single day. But anyway, so that's what I'm going to do. I thought it kind of interesting. So let's dive into this. This is the first time doing this. And the idea here too is to kind of give you that idea, and then, but extract some lessons from it. Like, was there anything that stood out to me this week that we can learn from, or, that just might be interesting to talk about? And the other part of this is I used to do something years and years ago, when I used to do pay-per-click advertising, affiliate marketing. I used to teach those things. And one way we taught, and it was very, very, very popular, lots and lots of people. I would have dozens of people every month participating in these things. We would do these follow-alongs. We'd actually follow each other. So we had a forum, and we'd set up these threads in the forum, and we'd each have, our goal was to launch 100 campaigns. And out of those 100 campaigns, share our results collectively as a community. It was awesome. And we'd share our experiences as we go and extract those lessons. So that's kind of what this stems from too. I love that idea of follow-alongs and be able to bring you along on a journey. And I know that I learn really well, or like to learn, just watching what other people are doing, and it's just a really more organic kind of way to learn, and it's unique, and things will come out of that you wouldn't normally think of, and surprise things. Okay, let's go into it before I talk all day long. So let's talk about the meetings first. So generally speaking, I limit meetings. I do not have a lot of meetings throughout the week. On a typical week, I might have a half a dozen meetings for different reasons, right? So some of those are team meetings, some of those are client meetings. Some of those are meetings with prospects or people that I'm networking with that we might want to see if we can work together. So we have a variety of meetings each week. So this week, this is what it looked like. So first of all, every Monday morning, I have a meeting with my virtual assistant. Usually that's a half hour to an hour. We talk about this, what we're doing this week, marketing wise, content wise, what we review the previous week. We do, kind of a review of everything. We didn't do that this week, so we're going to skip over that. She actually had the week off. So maybe the next time we do this, we'll talk about, a little bit more detail on that. Every Tuesday morning, I actually have a stand-up meeting with one of my developers. She's always working on a variety of things, plugins or designs. She actually does design for us as well. So she's got a balance there. So we have actually a short, what we call a stand-up. It's literally like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, just to review what's going, if she has any questions, if she needs anything, and what we're doing this week and what projects she's working on. So we did that. Nothing too much to report from that otherwise. Tuesday, I actually recorded a podcast with Lorraine for More Than a Few Words. Again, that will come out in August sometime. You will know about it, though, if you're on my social media. I did have, on Wednesday, I had a meeting with a client, actually with the client. And in this case, we're actually building a block theme for them. We designed it, and we're translating that design to code. And it's a full site editing block theme for WordPress. We're doing that right now. But he's got an IT department that we have to interface with and work with to, they're setting up the server, a new server for them. They're actually moving their server. We were going to help them with that. We can help with that. But in this case, they wanted their IT guys that manage their domain and other stuff for them, emails and all that. They wanted them to handle it, which I'm okay with. I said, I just need a place for it to live. So as long as it's a good place, you're happy, great. But we had that meeting. I had the meeting with that group, and that was a positive meeting. I don't really know that I had a meeting this morning. So this is Friday. The first thing today, I had a meeting with basically a lead developer and then a plugin developer. That's plugin and Gutenberg developer for WordPress. And we're talking, they're helping me with a build kind of the framework and get started building this block theme we're working on. Not block theme, block plugin. We're building a block plugin to sell in a few months. And so I've hired this guy for like a 2-week contract just to come in and just build that initial framework and build out the architecture and all that stuff. So I talked to him about what my concerns were, what the goals were. And I already had he's got a doc that all the things that I need him to do and stuff, like the requirements and what I want him to focus on and do and blah, blah, blah. So that's what that conversation was. So it was a very techie conversation this morning. But that's basically it. I really didn't have that many meetings this week. What I do spend a lot of time, each week as well is on the marketing side. So this also often happens in the mornings. This week was a little light in the mornings because, so as I just said, my virtual assistant, she's off this week. Generally speaking, though, like at 9 a.m. every morning, I'm spending some time with her on content. She puts together content and she'll write some content. She creates graphics and all that stuff. And then she posts that for me to review every day. So I spend 20 minutes in the morning going through all that, editing or having her edit some things. She'll also post, maybe clips from podcast, different things like that. That we didn't do that this week. That was all, we actually stacked it, the weeks prior. So all that's kind of just already done. So this week's a little light on that. So I didn't have to do a lot of that marketing. I will touch base on social media throughout the day. Usually that's when I'm taking a break or in between things. I'll jump on social media to see if there's anything to tweet about or whatever. So that's always happening kind of in between things. I don't really have, it's semi-structured, but Yeah, it just depends. And sometimes I do more networking during the week, but this week was light on that as well. Otherwise, projects. So this is the fun part, right? What projects did we work on this week? Well, I already talked to you. I had that meeting this morning on plugin development. So that's happening. We're actually, I will never do this again. Maybe I should never say never, but basically we're trying to develop 3 plugins at the same time right now. And so Janine, who's on my team, she's working on a plugin. So there's kind of some back and forth with that. She's fixing some bugs. We're working on that. That plugin she's working on actually is a plugin that it's months out before we'll actually launch that one. There's a lot more we're going to do with it. The block plugin, that's a couple months out too, but we're kind of building that framework, and we're planning out some more blocks to deliver when we launch it. There's another plugin that is pretty much done and it has some bugs that needs fixing. So I gave that to a developer that helped me develop it. But it's kind of on hold for a minute because he's working on a block theme. So I'm letting him kind of finish that first, and then he'll work on getting that fixed. So that's kind of that block development's happening. I haven't done much else on that side of things this week. Everything's kind of temporarily on hold as I wait for some things to get done and delivered to me. I should be working on the website and stuff and other things so we can sell this. I did that last week, but this week I've been just focused mostly on client stuff this week. So speaking of client stuff, so what's Matt doing specifically? So kind of give you a typical week here. So every week I do a lot of coordinating, a lot of managing projects, and so on a daily basis, I'm checking on what's being worked on. I make my rounds. So I'm looking at each developer, where they're at, if they got any questions, and I'll get notifications for that, but I'm still kind of checking in regardless. I get daily updates. So every single developer, every person working for me gives me a daily update. What they worked on today, if there's any roadblocks, and what they worked on yesterday or whatever they want to tell me, right? And so I kind of get a snapshot of what's going on, if they're stuck on anything and all that. So I'm looking at that. I'm looking at, and then I'm looking at all the new business that might be coming in, new projects, assigning those, creating the requirement docs, and maybe recording a video to talk about what needs to be done. And so there's this constant facilitation of talking to the clients, or getting that new business, or working on existing, back and forth, and then talking to the team and making sure everybody's on the right page. So that's a big part of what I do nowadays. And just kind of aligning those resources and getting the whole team working and keep them working. That's my goal, really. That's every day. My goal is to make sure my team has enough to be able to work today. So they're not stuck. And I have to make sure that I'm not the roadblock, and that I'm not something that's holding them up as well. They're waiting on something that they need. So I have to be very vigilant with that. And so one thing that transpired this week is kind of a back and forth with a client. It's actually another agency. We've been helping them with one of their clients for quite a while. I would say half a year. And, but they decided that they want to potentially do a maintenance contract with us. It's a larger one. And our contracts are more than 1,000 on average. So it's a larger contract. So I'm going to I set up a meeting with him on Monday. We're going to discuss the details. That's kind of a cool thing that happened this week. We get another piece of business possibly. And I love those monthly contracts. So that's awesome. So that's something that happens. So throughout the week, you will see me talk talking to different agencies, maybe talking about projects like that or their needs for their clients and how we can help them. So that was one example of that. Like I said, we do a good number of one of our biggest things that we do is maintenance. And this is actually through an agency, though, which is kind of unique. A lot of our maintenance contracts are actually direct client, and which is great too, right? So we have direct clients. Big chunk of our business is direct clients, but in this case, it's a scenario where it's an agency that has a client that needs regular maintenance. We're actually going to rebuild the site initially, but in this case, they decided they would rather just utilize kind of we have a very unique maintenance contract where it also includes creating a roadmap and improving the site over time. So kind of a longer term plan without just blowing up the site today and starting over or something. So that's happening. But those type of things happen throughout the week. That was one instance of that. Another thing, there was somebody, an agency that usually refers business to us. In this case, we for the first time we did a direct contract with them. We invoiced them directly. So they asked me for a W-9, so I had to put a W-9 together this week, and actually for a couple people, so that they can then W-9's used for them to be able to generate a 1099 for taxes. So 1099, that's how they report stuff. You can look up what 1099 is on Google. So that's like those little legal things or some documentation stuff happened this week. And then kind of making some strategic decisions. So as we do all, like I said, our big thing is maintenance, and you learn stuff over time, right? We've been doing late maintenance for a long time, real busy sites, e-commerce sites, all kinds of stuff we're doing. And so, but once in a while you learn something or something happens, an event happens that you can learn from. And I do that a lot. If something happens, I'm like, well, how can we avoid that next time? Or what can we do that can limit that at least, right? And one of those events that happened was we had a third party. So it was one of our clients. It was actually a direct client, and they have an Elementor site. But Elementor, there's actually some other plugins that work with Elementor that add functionality. And one of those plugins crashed the site. Because when we updated Elementor, and it broke some functionality, which then led to me trying to fix that functionality, and then it just blew up the whole site. The site went down, right? Troubleshooting, looking at the errors, figuring it out, doing my research and hunting, and found out it was actually this particular plugin. And then went to the plugin page and realized that plugin hadn't been updated for a while and no longer support. In fact, they pulled the download. The page is still there on WordPress, but now it's a notice, don't use this plugin. There's going to be security issues, and it doesn't support the latest version of Elementor, obviously. So here's a plugin that the client has. Now, we don't know that looking in, like if you're doing auto updates, even if the site's auto updating, even if you look manually in the admin, you're not going to see anything. It's just going to sit there because there's no new updates coming in. There's no notice in there in red. There should be. They should have probably updated the plugin one last time and put like some kind of red text somewhere. But that didn't happen. So here that plugin sat, and we didn't know about it until it actually broke things. So the reason I tell you that is because that led to kind of a rethinking. So we do a lot of our updates and clients that we work with. Their updates are critical, and we have a staging site. We test everything first before we push it live. So we have this process going, and But even something like that, it's hard to catch those things. So in order to catch those things, we actually have to visit the page that these plugins are on, being downloaded from, whether that's on WordPress or their own site or whatever. So I've kind of implemented something that at least once a quarter, we should probably do a full, kind of click out, look at that page, make sure there's no other issues there. It also is an opportunity probably to look and see if there's any negative feedback or anything happening otherwise. There's probably other things we might be able to identify. If that plugin hasn't been updated for a while for some reason or some other warnings or whatever, we need to know those things. So even like I said, sometimes depending on the developer and the plugin, everything's different. We may not be able to catch those. So that's something that where I decided we need to implement this. It's a little more work for us, but listen, I'm very proactive and I try to do things through our maintenance and working on these sites that's going to prevent problems in the future. So that I'm not sitting there 7:00 at night, seeing a website crash and not knowing what just happened. That was not good. I told my wife, I'm like, I'm eating in my office right now. let's make dinner real quick. Brought my plate up here, plopped it down on my desk, and I'm trying to figuring out how to fix something while I eat. So we want to avoid that. So that's something that happened this week, is kind of implementing that. I already let one of my clients know that we're going to be doing that. And they're happy because, again, they're like, we like that's why we like working with you, because you're proactive. So kind of some other random stuff, like I had to update a WooCommerce. We had to implement, for security reasons, they had like 20 employees in their admin. And even though they had like shop manager permissions, we need to refine that more and refine their roles and limit what they see for security reasons. And so I was in there doing that and playing around with that. It was a combination using a plugin and writing a function to limit what they see for in the admin and the admin menu and stuff. So they only see what they need to see. So that was kind of a coding thing I did this week. Affiliate program integration. A client is. I had that meeting last week, but they basically are integrating an affiliate program into their site. And on my end, I have to implement the code and figure out how that's all going to work. Because there's integrations with WooCommerce and how we're going to deal with cancellations and all that stuff. And I'm the tech guy. So I got to figure that out and implement it and test it. Sometimes that would have gone to one of my developers, but my developers, this is something that I have to weigh every week. So they're working on projects, and I deemed what they're working on as priority, in that they need to continue working on that. And so I'm going to work on this, or the other option would have been to delay it, to schedule it for the following week or something, but the client needs it sooner than later. So I'm putting on my coding hat. So that there's a live chat. Live chat is a plugin, actually a website that provides live chat functionality. We actually had that already installed. There were some bugs or some configurations I was trying to help the client with, get it to a good place. It's in a good place. He's happy with how it looks, the UI and everything. And now he asked, do you have some training for my support staff? And so I have to figure that out probably today yet. I want to figure out, I don't know if this is the first time I've had this request, so I don't remember what their documentation is, so I'll have to see what their documentation is, but I'll see if they have any videos that can intro a team. Otherwise, that falls on me. Sometimes I have to create the training videos. That's why it's good that I have this video experience. But I use Snagit, I use Camtasia. One of those two I would create just a walkthrough or a tutorial introducing them and how things work. So that's kind of part of my service as well. This is a maintenance contract, and this is something I'm doing for that client. So if that's the thing with being a web developer, web designer, my agency anyway, and the way I run things, that we're not only just designing and developing things and coding and doing all that stuff, we also have to support that, and we have to provide documentation sometimes, and we have to teach the client. We have to show the client how to do things. I built something. We built something. I probably will mention that. We built something where for Shopify, and it's a new feature in Shopify. And they asked, well, how's that going to work? And so sometimes I can verbally just say, this is what you're going to see. It's adding this option here, and that's it. Other times it's a little more involved. I want to step them through it, so I'll create like a couple-minute video walkthrough of something. So that's included in what we do. So thank goodness I know how to do those things. All right. So so Shopify is one of the things that I actually worked on this week myself. We were working on a custom feature for an agency, and a couple little features actually it turned out to be. They're like, we were working on one thing. They're like, can you do this too? Because I can't figure it out. And does this need to be custom too? I'm like, yeah. They're actually a very custom cart. So they're trying to find an app that would solve their issue or do something. But that wasn't going to work in their case. And so I was tweaking that and actually going into the code. I had another developer working on it, but I jumped in there and had to tweak something, add a little code, a little logic in there to do something. So a little bit, crossover there that I had to do. The team in general, one developer working on one of our sites that's going to sell products. We're going to, and so that's happening. Another thing that, so we'll get these little things along the way. So the person that is developing, working on front end stuff, a front end project, that person it's a different front end project for a client. I actually had him pause for a minute because I had a priority thing. He had to, WooCommerce was adding some default schema, structured data that Google uses for ads and different things. And the client it was causing conflicts with their feeds. So we had to remove that. And it was a small function. It's something I could have done, but I was able to just give that to one of my developers. He just handled that. So that was like a little thing. So little things like that will happen, and we'll pause for a second just to do it because if it's high priority. So a big part of my role is just making sure that all the priorities are handled in the priority order. So once in a while you have a little fire, something big happens, you got to stop and work on that, or just some things just need to be slotted first. And so usually what I'll do in those cases, we use Trello for everything. I have thought about moving over to Jira, but I haven't made that switch yet for some of my developers. But we generally use Trello, so they'll have like a to-do list in there, and what's in progress, what they're working on. Once in a while, I have to slot things in there, highlight it as high priority. We'll add a tag, and then I'll go to Slack. So when they start their next shift, I'll say, this is your priority today. So I'll also do that. So they know, and I'll link to that card. They know that they have to work on that, or it has to get done during their shift. So that's kind of, how those type of things work. But we have the front end dev project we're working on. It's a full site editing theme that's using our in-house boilerplate. This is the same boilerplate, the same template or framework, whatever you want to call it, that will be providing people, not selling. We're going to give it away. So for an email address, but that way, you can always get updates and everything else. And if anything changes with that framework or whatever. But it's actually a framework for freelancers and agencies. Other businesses could use it too, or give it to their developers or whatever. But it's really just, it's a pretty simple framework for block themes. But so I wanted to use, this is the first client project where we're building a pure full site editing block theme. And then we'll extract the lessons. So we'll do a retrospective after that with this developer, and we'll talk about what he thinks we could improve in the process, if we could add features that would help him or whatever. We're doing that. We're actually using it to build one of our sites for one of our products. So we're going to use it ourselves before we give it to others. So when we actually finally do give it to somebody, we'll, have it well tested. And then we have a lot of maintenance routines. So we have kind of our bread and butter is for maintenance is these monthly contracts. And with those, there's weekly, monthly, and like I talked about earlier, now quarterly routines that we have. And we want to, it's really important with WordPress or any really CMS to keep it up to date as for security reasons or whatever. So it's really, really important. I was trying to think, there was another scenario recently where that really helped a lot. I'm trying to think, so much happens. But yeah, I can't think of it. Maybe I'll think of it as I'm talking here. But it's really important to keep plugins up to date. And we did. It was for a client that there was an issue. There was an issue with the checkout, and I think we determined it was because that the next round of updates was going to fix that. Because what we'll do is we'll have a staging site. We actually have multiple stagings for this client. We have a staging site that's just used for plugin updates. So we can have a good routine and good schedule of those updates always being able to be pushed out. Because what would happen was we'd get bottlenecked. We would have, if you have one staging and you want to do updates to the plugins and test those, but then you're working on some feature that that's also in there. And sometimes you do that, and it's like, oh, the feature's only going to take a day or two. It doesn't sound that big a deal. And then 3 weeks later, so it's just sitting there. So I had to create multiple channels. So one is for that, and then we have a couple other installs for features or different things we're working on. And so we all, it's a much better system. But that's really important, right? So I have a repeatable Trello card in Trello for the developer. There's a dedicated developer that generally helps me with all maintenance. And he has a list of sites, and he has all the logins and stuff for all those sites everything he needs. And then it's a template, and we'll create that new card, and then he'll work through it and do his thing. Oftentimes there's something in there that he needs help with, like there was a situation with one of the databases was like this week, one of the databases is really big. So it's really big, and he needed to, so he's having issues like actually merging that in to our staging. So I needed to help him with that. I'm going to, so that's where all that happens in that Trello card. And there's that Trello card will have descriptions. He knows what he's doing now, but there was some training behind that, exactly how we do this, the best methodology to keep things up to date. So that's a big part of what we do. And then we're always looking at other projects like the front end project. So we also do the custom work. We did that custom Shopify feature. It was actually, they have a custom way like checkout, and they wanted to add variations in there, and they couldn't easily do it. So we had to create some custom code to do that. So there were some drop downs, and then and they also, it was a unique feature where the cart had to have a certain limit before somebody could submit it. It's kind of, I'm not sure why they do what they do on this site yet. Because it's not an actual traditional checkout. It's like people are requesting quotes. There's regular products, but they're requesting quotes for these products. But they wanted it to be a certain limit. You had to have at least this much in the cart. So we did that. So that's something that actually a different developer, like I brought a different developer that we have access to just for that project. So that was kind of a one-off project for this developer. So I'll bring sometimes, I have developers like the maintenance guy. He's like a full-time developer. That's all he does is maintenance, and he's working on other stuff for me. But once in a while, I'll have something like that. I don't want to disrupt his work. So I bring in another developer on contract just for the day it takes to do this other thing or whatever. Or like the plugin, I'm bringing somebody in for 2 weeks because even though I have 3 full-time developers, they're always working on stuff. So sometimes I have the ability, the flexibility, to the elasticity to add people to my team if I need it for certain things. So it's pretty cool. But that's kind of how isn't that a crazy week? That's 1 week. And I'm quite sure that I didn't tell you every detail. It's every day, I wake up, it's, the routine is wake up, see what's going on. I do my little personal routine, get ready in the morning, sit down in this chair by usually 8:30 or 9 o'clock. That's when I start my days. I'm not an early riser. Okay. Just know that about me. If you ever work with me, I do not get up super early. I'm not a 5 a.m. guy. I don't care how good they say it is. I guarantee maybe when I'm 80, I'll get up at 5 a.m. for some reason. But no, I've always been, maybe it's my bartending days, working nights. I don't know what it is in my DNA. But I go to bed at like 11:30 every night, and I'm up, by 7:30 and, starting work, when I'm ready. I don't have a specific minute. I just, whenever I sit down in this desk, it's usually within a half-hour time frame. So, but that's what I do. I'll get the content. Well, so I'll start seeing what messages are, see if there's any fires, see if there's anything anybody needs. If there was an important project worked on overnight, I have to check in on that first. So it's all about priorities. And then when I see the content hit in Slack, she drops all the content. I go review all that, edit it or whatever. That's a priority for me because we want to make sure our marketing and content machine keeps rolling. And then I'm off to doing other projects, maybe having meetings, maybe having, planning the next day, what people are working on, reviewing work, doing all that stuff. My team's working on a variety of different projects at the same time. I'm listening for clients, looking for emails, requests. Are they looking for something? All that stuff happening. I have a couple clients that use Basecamp. I have some clients that just use email. I have some clients that will use my ticket center. I trained one client to use my ticket center. There's multiple that will use it. It just depends. And I'm kind of coordinating all that, keeping an eye on all that, making sure everything keeps moving. But I hope you found this interesting. I actually think personally, I think this is a great format. Obviously, just like any product or any service or anything like that, I can think one thing. It's really the market that will tell me, right? But if you do enjoy this, I would love to, if you want to drop a comment below, if you're on YouTube, or just shoot me an email or comment on my blog. Just let me know. I mean, it's great to get that feedback as well. But I've always liked the idea of follow-alongs. That's kind of what we do at the Builders in general, right? It's following along with people's journeys, lessons from the trenches. It's like you learning from just people sharing what they're doing in their business. I think we can learn a lot from that. We can extract the lessons, like hopefully I did today a few times. Anyway, that's it for this episode. Thanks for hanging in there with me. Until next time, you have a good one. That's all for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed that. Again, please subscribe if you haven't already and give us a thumbs up if we deserve it. If you want to comment on this episode's page, provide me with requests on topics for future episodes, or inquire about being a guest, please find your way to thebuilders.fm. You can contact me there or add a comment under these show notes. Now a word from our sponsor, my agency, Unified Web Design. We build custom websites, features, we maintain websites, we work with agencies to fulfill their web design and development needs, and more. If you're interested in our services or are looking for an agency to work with as a partner to build awesome sites for your clients, feel free to reach out to me at unifiedwebdesign.com. There's a handy contact me link at the top. Fill out that form and it will open a ticket, and that ticket will find its way to me. Thanks for joining me today. We'll see you next time.